Hi, I'm Mike Kraft. If you have high traffic areas in your house, you might consider installing a tile floor. They're durable and easy to clean. And the installation is easier than you think. Ceramic tile also works well in rooms with a lot of moisture, like bathrooms and kitchens. And they're great for entryways too, which is what we're doing in this room. And to show us the installation process is our carpenter, Jeff Clamett. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Mike. Here are some of the things you ought to have for a tile floor project. Of course, you'll need ceramic tile. Cement backer board makes a solid underlayment. Secure it with a drill and galvanized screws. And cement board seam tape for the seams. To prepare your project, have a tape measure, pencil, chalk line, and a square. You may also need a sander and floor filler. To install the tile, be sure to have tile adhesive, a notched trowel, tile spacers, along with a level and a rubber mallet. Grouting tile requires grout and a rubber float, buckets for water and mixing the grout, sponges, and sealer. If you have to cut the tile, you'll need a tile cutter, and possibly a glass cutter and nippers for curved cuts. And don't forget work gloves and safety glasses. You'll also need transitions and molding. Our project requires tile edging metal strips.
Always use proper safety measures when doing any project. And if you're not confident in installing a ceramic tile floor, see a Lowe's associate, because Lowe's installs many types of flooring. And always follow local building codes. Now, before starting the project, read the manufacturer's instructions. You'll find information about moisture tests and types of subfloors. Okay, let's get started. Jeff, what's the first step?
Well, the first step is to remove the old flooring and the baseboards, which we've already done. And then you're going to want to determine the square footage of the area. In our area, we decided that we're going to do a 4-foot by 4.5-foot section. So to determine the square footage, you'll multiply those two numbers together.
Okay, or you can make it easy on yourself. Use the calculator at Lowe's.com/calculators. Now, with that square footage number, that's the basis for what?
That's going to determine how much material we're going to need, and we're going to want to add about 5% for scrap. The next thing we're going to do is prepare the floor. So visually inspect it, look for any high spots or any low spots. Any high spots, sand. Any low spots, you want to use a floor leveler. What we're doing now is installing our cement board using these galvanized screws.
Now, the cement board, what does that do for us exactly?
That creates a sturdy base to lay our tile to so they don't bend or crack.
Okay, now if this is cement, how do you cut it?
Well, you score it a couple times, bend it and snap it and cut the back side.
So just cut it with a utility knife?
Right.
Okay, now in our case we have two pieces here. What do we have on the seam?
Any seam that you're going to use or come across, you're going to want to use your tile backer tape to cover the seam.
Laying a tile floor lets you show off your creative side, and there's many different types of patterns and designs. There's even pre-assembled patterns with a mesh backing for easy installation. And Lowe's has ceramic tile in many different colors and sizes, so you can pick the tile that suits your style. All right, now what's the pattern we're laying down here, Jeff?
We're using a jack-on-jack pattern, which is a checkerboard pattern.
In a small area like this, reference lines aren't needed. But if you're covering the whole room, make reference lines by marking the center of two opposing walls. Snap a chalk line between these marks. Do the same thing for the other two walls, forming a cross in the middle of the work area. Check to see if the intersection is square. Then, loose lay the tile along each of the reference lines. Use the tile spacers for a more accurate fitting, and be sure to leave about 1/4 inch between the perimeter tiles and the walls for expansion. If the dry layout leaves less than half a tile's width at the walls, adjust the reference lines so there are equal tiles on each side. Pick up the tile once the reference lines are set. If you're working in a large area, it may be helpful to mark a grid with 3-foot squares on the floor. It's more accurate to work in smaller sections, making necessary adjustments as you go. For our entry, Jeff placed the tiles to be sure that the layout was visually pleasing. We wanted full tiles to be in the center of the room where they would be most visible, so we located the cut tiles next to the wall. Mix tiles from different boxes in case there are any slight color differences between packages. Jeff had already cut the door casings so the tile would fit underneath. Next, he spread the adhesive. Ours was pre-mixed. He started in one corner since the tile only covered a small area. For larger projects, begin at the center cross in the middle of the room. On ours, he spread the adhesive with the smooth side of the trowel, applying it evenly. If you have reference lines, try not to cover them. Once the adhesive was down, he combed over it with the notched side of the trowel at a 45-degree angle. He combed the adhesive in one direction without making swirl patterns. This ensured uniform application of the mastic. He removed any excess with a trowel. For our entry, we used tile edging. Jeff spread adhesive along the edge of the work area, then laid the metal strip on the mastic. The adhesive held the edger in place. When he had a small area covered with adhesive, he started laying the tile in place using the spacers. He lightly pressed and twisted the ceramic to set it into the adhesive. Periodically, he lifted a tile to make sure the adhesive was sticking. Where it didn't, he buttered back the adhesive on the tile. If you're not getting good coverage, use a trowel with larger notches. When adhesive got on the face of the tile, Jeff wiped it off with a damp sponge. After a few tiles were set, he evened them out with a rubber mallet and a level, and checked this often as he laid the floor. He kept working from the edges of the work area. For the tiles that needed straight cuts, Jeff used a tile cutter. Use a glass cutter and tile nippers if you need to make curved cutouts, and always wear safety glasses. Once all of the tile had been set, we let the adhesive dry overnight. The next step was to grout the joints. We mixed the grout according to the manufacturer's instructions. Usually, the directions call for a paste-like consistency. Jeff applied the grout with a rubber grout float diagonally across the tile joints. He removed as much excess grout from the tile surface as possible. After 20 minutes, he wiped along the grout lines with a damp sponge until the grout was just below the tile surface. After the grout has been set, we avoided heavy traffic for 72 hours and waited 3 weeks for the grout to cure. Then we applied a grout sealer to the joints. The last step was to attach any trim work or transition strips. Thanks to Jeff, the end result is great. Now that you've seen how our entry is done, check out more videos at Lowe's.com/videos.